In this video, we will see about K-means clustering algorithm. So this K-means clustering comes under a centroid-based technique. So here, this algorithm is going to take the input parameter K from the user, and then it is going to partition the data set, which is containing totally n objects, into K number of clusters. When we do so, we have to maintain two things. One is intra-cluster similarity is high, and then intercluster similarity is low. And one more important thing is the number of clusters to be formed K is less than or equal to n. And here we are going to focus on similarity. So the similarity of the cluster is determined with respect to the mean value of the cluster. Because of this only, it is called as K-means clustering. We are going to divide the data set into K clusters, and for that we are going to compute the metrics as means. And here we are going to select K number of objects at random from set of n data objects given to you. So initially I'll give you a data set which contains n object. First, from that, I told you that you have to form K clusters. You don't know what is the centroid for the cluster. So initially you will be selecting K number of objects at random from the set of n objects. And these n objects, these K objects you have selected will be treated as centroid. Okay, and with respect to the centroid, you are going to form the cluster. So each of the remaining object will be assigned to one of the closest centroid, and it will be forming the cluster. Once you form the cluster, now to the newly formed cluster, you have to again calculate the centroid. So update the centroid for each cluster. Then after you update the centroid for each cluster, again cluster the objects. So this assignment and procedure will be done until you reach some stopping criteria. So what is the stopping criteria here is, sometimes I may tell you repeat the procedure for 3 iterations. Otherwise, I can tell you repeat the procedure until you get the centroid unchanged. So the stopping criteria can be anything that can be specified by the user. If the user is not specifying any stopping criteria, generally the algorithm proceeds until the centroid remains unchanged. So these are all the steps in the algorithm. The input to the algorithm is the data set which contains n object, and K will also be given as input. Without that, you cannot proceed. And output is you have to develop the clusters. That is nothing but K clusters which contains all the data points. That is the output. And step number 1 is you are going to randomly choose K objects from the initial data set D as the initial cluster centroid, because it is mainly basis on centroid only. You need to select the centroid. Initially we don't know, so we select randomly some K object. After that, for every object in your data set D, you have to do 2 steps. One is you compute the distance between the current object and the K centroids. After you compute the distance, you are going to assign the current object to the cluster which is closer to the particular object. So this is repeated for all the objects in your data set D. And once you do that, you are going to update the cluster centroid for every cluster, because now you have formed a different cluster. Since the cluster is different, the centroid will be different. So you update the cluster centroid for every cluster, and these are going to become your new cluster centroid. And repeat these 2 procedures, steps 2 and 3, until the convergence criteria is satisfied. So now, here to calculate the cluster centroid in K-means clustering algorithm, you can use distance measure. There are so many distance measures available, and these distance measures are going to determine the similarity between 2 elements, and also they are going to influence the shape of the cluster. And whenever you go for K-means, the choice of the distance measure is a critical step in the clustering process. So in the literature, there are different distance measures available. I have listed a few. These are the most widely used distance measures. One is called as Euclidean distance measure, which you are already familiar with. In algebra, you might have studied, you know the application of Pythagoras theorem. If I give you 2 points, by applying the Pythagoras theorem, you can find out the distance between the 2 points. That is based upon the Euclidean distance. So that is the first distance measure. And the second one is called as Manhattan distance measure. And the third one is Minkowski distance measure. Then fourth is Jaggard similarity. Then fifth one is cosine similarity. So all these distance measures are mainly used to find the similarity only. First, let us consider Euclidean distance measure. So this is the most common case in determining the distance between any 2 points. For example, let me assume that I have 2 points A and B in the 2D plane. It's not that the point should be in the 2D plane. It can be in any n-dimensional plane, because in our data sets, 2D planes means you should have only 2 attributes. It's not that all the data set is going to have 2 attributes. A data set can have n number of attributes. In that, you are going to deal with n-dimensional plane. Now, for simplicity, we are assuming that we are dealing with the 2-dimensional plane. So in this, if I calculate the distance between the 2 points A and B, I can use the Pythagoras theorem to calculate the distance. So you know what is the Pythagoras theorem. So here, in case of Pythagoras theorem, to calculate the distance, the point A is given by P1, P2 because it is a 2D plane, and B is given by Q1, Q2. According to Pythagoras theorem, the distance between the 2 points, this is the shortest distance between the 2 points, is calculated by, you take the first dimension of both the thing and subtract, then find the square. So P1 minus Q1 the whole squared plus P2 minus Q2 the whole squared, the square root. Okay, so this is the Pythagoras theorem. This is for 2-dimensional plane. We can generalize this equation for n-dimensional plane because our data set is definitely more than 2-dimension only. So if you want to generalize for n-dimensional plane, the equation will be, the distance is calculated by, here instead of P1, you substitute Pi. So Pi minus Qi the whole squared. Okay, so we are summing different terms. P1 minus Q1 the whole squared is summed with P2 minus Q2 the whole squared. For that, I am going to use summation. Since here we have 2-dimensional plane, so we have 2 parts. But if you have n-dimensional plane, we will have n parts. So you sum this from I is equal to 1 to n, and finally you have to take the square root of that. So we have the whole power half. By means of this, you can find the distance between 2 points. And try to remember this formula because this is for n-dimensional plane. So that is the most widely used distance metric. And the second is Manhattan's distance metric. So here, this Manhattan distance metric is going to use the simple sum of horizontal and vertical components. That is nothing but distance between 2 points measured along axis at right angle. For example, A is the first point, B is the second point. In Pythagoras theorem, we are straightly connecting these 2 points by the shortest line and calculating the distance. But in Manhattan, what we are going to do is, we are going to move in the 90-degree direction only. So from this point A, I'll move like this. So this is one axis. I'm moving along the vertical axis, y-axis. And then from this point A, I'm moving along the horizontal axis. So when you do that, you will be getting the final distance. So the distance between 2 points is now calculated as D is equal to P1 minus Q1. Okay, so this P1 minus Q1 is nothing but horizontal axis distance plus P2 minus Q2. And very important thing is, here you are taking the absolute value. So the reason for going for absolute value is, if you don't use that, sometimes they will cancel each other and you will get the distance as 0. But distance is never 0. You have certain distance between the 2 points. So you take absolute value of this. So for n-dimensional plane, you can write this equation as distance, Manhattan's distance dm is nothing but sigma I is equal to 1 to n absolute of Pi minus Qi. And the third one is Minkowski distance measure. And this Minkowski distance is a generalized form of Euclidean and then Manhattan distance. So in Euclidean distance, if you consider the formula of both, you can see here in this one, I have sigma I is equal to 1 to n Pi minus Qi the whole squared whole power half. Okay, this is the Euclidean distance formula. In case of Manhattan, it is sigma I is equal to 1 to n Pi minus Qi absolute value. Okay, so here we are going to generalize these 2 equations. So when you generalize, you can write the general equation as sigma I is equal to 1 to n Pi minus Qi absolute of power p. Okay, and whole power 1 by p. In this case, why we are telling this as a generalized form? Suppose if I substitute p is equal to 1, what I'll be getting? Sigma I is equal to 1 to n Pi minus Qi the absolute power 1 whole power 1 by 1. That is nothing but it is the equation of Minkowski distance. Suppose if I substitute p is equal to 2 in this equation, it is sigma I is equal to 1 to n Pi minus Qi power 2 the whole power 1 by 2. It is nothing but equation of the Euclidean distance. So you will say that it is a generalized form of both Euclidean and then Manhattan distance. So with this, we have finished various distance measures.